So we're here at a very popular stand at the National Ploughing Championships. It's Met Eireann. We all love to talk about the weather, particularly in the farming community. Paul Downs is a meteorologist with Met Eireann. And Paul, I'm sure this is a very busy stand this week. We've dealt with a lot of mud, we've dealt with a lot of rain. We're still here on day 3, but there's been a lot of rain in the last few days.
Yes, it's a mud bath out there at the moment. It really is. We had about roughly between 23 and 28 millimetres of rain between Monday evening and Wednesday morning here. Now, we had a couple of showers yesterday afternoon, but they weren't quite as bad. And it's a nice enough morning out there, so the sun is back. But yeah, it made for a very messy situation, and we had a lot of rain on the ground already.
Yeah, and what is day 3 looking like? What is the forecast for today?
There is a chance of the odd shower around, mostly light. Overall, though, good sunny spells, so a good end to the week.
Yeah, a good car park drying for us all to get home tonight.
Exactly. It's quite a mess out there.
Look, it's been some extremes this year as well. We've had a tough harvest for our tillage farmers, Paul. We've had some extremes this year with droughts, with floods and everything like that. Has our weather got more extreme, or is that just our perception of it?
Well, we don't look at one individual event, but for instance, March had its highest March rainfall, July had its highest July rainfall, and that's the highest rainfall of the year, about twice its average July rainfall. We also had June, which was May and June, we had absolute drought in 24 of our stations between that period before thunderstorms kicked in. We also had the hottest June on record, with minimum temperatures as well, above 16 degrees on average. That's the first time that's happened. We also see around the world there's not a lot more extreme events. So when you add all that up together, we're starting to see that climate change really kicking in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose that's our perception that it's more extreme, but for farmers, literally I'd say your website is one of their first ports of call, along with Agriland of course, but it's just so crucial for the farming sector. And I suppose forecasting and putting the forecast together, and weather can be so localised, and I'm sure you probably get calls saying, well, it's not like that my way.
Well, definitely we do, and with the thunderstorms we had through June and the heavy rain into July, oftentimes we're getting more intense rainfall over small areas, so it could even be one end of a farm getting a lot more rain than the other end of the farm. But as a farmer myself, and seeing this, it's been a very, very difficult year for farmers, from the drought, the stifling things at the start of the summer, right through to the heavy rainfall. A lot of second cut silage wasn't able to be done, and I haven't seen much hay being made, and I'm sure the hay that's out there this year is probably not the best.
Yeah. But I suppose, Paul, in terms of putting the forecast together, we have a lot of technology here on the stand, and it's such a science, As a meteorologist yourself, I'm sure you've seen vast developments in the technology to tell us what weather is going to hit Ireland.
Yeah, meteorology is a relatively young science, and it's really evolving quite fast at the moment. However, our observations still come from maybe 800 balloons that are launched around the world twice a day to look at the upper atmosphere, and a lot more surface observations around the world. They're all put into a supercomputer. Some of the biggest computers in the world are running Met forecasts. And from that, we get multiple different options of what the forecast might be. And as forecasters, we're able to spot the patterns and see, okay, this is the one we go with, and forecast from there.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you to look into the future a small little bit, Paul. We have storm names. We had Anthony, we had Betty, to the best of my knowledge, brought a lot of wind and rain for us a few weeks back. But I suppose the naming of storms and the status yellow alerts, the status orange, status red, is that just a way for the public to sit up and pay a bit more attention, giving a name to a storm? There's method to the madness of doing this, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. Once a storm is named, there seems to be quite a rise in hashtagging of that name and talking about that storm specifically. Not all of these storms that are named by our group, being Ireland, England and the Dutch, or Ireland, UK and the Dutch, they may hit the other parts, England or Holland, but really for us, we get an option to name 1/3 of the storms in this year. We looked at scientists in Ireland, and Ireland has a strong history of science. We don't talk about it enough, and even meteorology. We have Kelvin, which you might know, the Kelvin scale. We have Beaufort, we have Boyle's Law, another one. So there's a lot of original meteorology actually started in Ireland years ago.
Yeah, and I think people get a great kick out of the storm names as well, you know, tagging people on social media. You might be Storm Paul. I don't think we've had a Storm Aisling yet. I'll have to put in for that next year. So, but I think people, it does, as you say, it makes the weather very accessible for people, and it raises awareness, because I suppose especially in something like a status red, where conditions can get very, very dangerous, it makes people very much aware of what's going on around them.
Definitely. And I know people may get tired of having a lot of warnings out there, but you really have to heed when they go into any category, yellow, orange or red, but you really have to have a heightened reaction towards the named storms or anything with orange or red or that sort of thing.
Yeah, and look, finally, Paul, long-range weather forecast, what are we looking at for the back end? How far ahead can we look? Are we going to get loads of those storms? Hopefully not.
Well, when you go into the longer range, you go from forecasting it more into climatology and looking at larger scale patterns, what's happening in the oceans and the like of that. It has some value, but it's not always bang on. Currently, we're seeing trends towards a warmer, wetter winter this year, quite typical with the El Nino pattern, and the fact we've had a lot of unsettled conditions over the past while. We're more likely to see a few more storms this year. Last year, the 2 storms we did get came this August. So we had a fairly quiet winter overall. We had 2 storms we didn't name that hit Ireland, but that was it.
Okay, well, Paul, thank you so much, and thanks to the team at Met Eireann for always keeping us up to date. Paul Downs, meteorologist with Met Eireann, here at the National Ploughing Championships, so you can pop along and find out what the weather's going to be like maybe in your area from Paul.